No reporters allowed. Politicians say Taipei's government hid a visiting Chinese delegation from media scrutiny. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken warns of serious consequences if Beijing provides lethal weapons to Moscow. Taiwan's indoor mask mandate is at an end in most places. But on day one of the new policy, most people are still masked up. Plus,
I'm Rik Glauert for TaiwanPlus, here in Lviv, western Ukraine. Nearly 1 year into Russia's invasion, I've got a report on how cities like this one are meeting the needs of those displaced by war.
a warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News. I'm Rik Glauert. Officials from Shanghai have left Taipei after a 3-day visit. But for much of their trip, the itinerary was a secret. As Stash Butler reports, Taipei City government has come under fire for keeping journalists from covering the Chinese delegation.
A hostile welcome for officials from China. The group from Shanghai arrived in Taipei on Saturday for a 3-day visit. Pro-Taiwan independence campaigners were there to greet them, alongside groups who support unification with China. Shanghai's Deputy Director of Taiwan Affairs, Li Xiaodong, has come on the pretext of seeing Taipei's Lantern Festival. It's the first visit by a Chinese official since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Their visit comes as China, which claims Taiwan as its own, continues to fly warplanes into Taiwan's air defense zone. All that is why this visit has attracted so much attention. But media outlets hoping to cover the trip have struggled to see much of the Chinese delegation since they arrived. The group's itinerary has been mostly secret, and one local councillor says Taipei's government is hiding them from the public.
低调到人不见了，是不是你在保护他们来做一个秘密的外交以及黑箱作业呢？
Taipei officials say they were asked to keep the trip low-key by the government's Mainland Affairs Council. They say they've got nothing to hide.
依循陆委会低调、单纯、安全3原则考量之下进行安排。
台北市和其他城市的交流，我们都会秉持对等、尊严、善意，还有互惠的原则来进行。
The Mainland Affairs Council has not said whether Taipei should have made the itinerary public, but it also urged city authorities to be open and transparent. Without any clarity on that issue, the Shanghai Delegation went ahead with a visit to see Taipei's government on Monday. There, they met Taipei Mayor Zhang Wanan. But again, whether it was Taipei's decision or the government's, no media were invited. Patrick Chen, Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has warned Beijing of serious consequences if it provides weapons to Russia. The warning came after Blinken met with China's top diplomat Wang Yi on the sidelines of a security conference in Munich. Blinken says new information suggests that Beijing is considering providing lethal support to Russian forces in their war against Ukraine.
We've been watching this very, very closely, and for the most part, China has been engaged in providing rhetorical, political, diplomatic support to Russia, but we have information that gives us concern that they are considering providing lethal support to Russia in the war against Ukraine. And it was important for me to share very clearly with Wang Yi that this would be a serious problem.
To find out more about the meeting between Antony Blinken and Wang Yi, our reporter James Chater spoke to Wen Song, political scientist at the Australian National University.
Are US-China ties in a better or worse state after this meeting between Wang Yi and Antony Blinken?
I think the main takeaway from that Wang Yi-Blinken meeting at the Munich Security Conference is that symbolism itself is important. Whatever the actual substantive agreement or lack thereof there may be from that meeting. Whatever the potential reasons for further escalation there may be, the two sides still intend to keep their competition within bounds. In the meantime, of course, you see both sides trying to, at least formally speaking, trying to downplay the meaning of the meeting itself. And what we see from the Munich Security Conference then is that both sides are back into that not exactly shouting match stage, but both are trying to use various wording, various shifts in diplomatic protocol to generate more bargaining chips that they can use against each other rather than working with each other.
Blinken warned of, quote, serious consequences if Beijing provides lethal weapons to Moscow. What do you think those US consequences would entail?
I think what I see from Blinken's statement is a gradual expansion of the scope of Chinese activities that the U.S. find as dangerously close to U.S. own red lines on the Ukraine-Russia war issue. Now, Blinken's statement is saying not only is direct Chinese support for a Russian war effort not acceptable, but nor is more indirect forms of Chinese support for the capacity of Russian state to wage this war against Ukraine.
We've had many reports now of US delegations wanting to visit Taiwan. A top Pentagon official was reported by the FT to be in Taiwan last week. What do you think all of this means for US-China-Taiwan ties in the months before Taiwan's presidential election?
When US-China relations were cordial, were positive, it is easier for Taiwan's opposition party, KMT, to secure voter trust, as well as maintaining both a strong relation with the US and China at the same time. However, at the moment when US-China relations were edging closer to crisis point, however, it is harder for those Beijing-friendlier political forces in Taiwan to be in a position to argue that it is possible for Taiwan to get along with both Beijing and Washington. So I think this downturn in US-China relations definitely will have significant impact in terms of marginalizing the scope of operations for Beijing-friendlier voices in Taiwan's 2024 presidential election.
That was James Chater speaking with Wen Song, a political scientist at Australian National University. Meanwhile, Taiwan's top agency overseeing cross-strait relations has hit back at comments made by Wang Yi that Taiwan has been a part of China since ancient times. The Mainland Affairs Council issued a statement saying the Republic of China Taiwan is a sovereign country and Taiwan has never been a part of the People's Republic of China, nor will it be in the future. The council also called on Beijing to stop its coercive actions toward Taiwan and to take responsibility for maintaining regional security. Since Russia invaded Ukraine nearly a year ago, millions of people have been displaced. While some have fled to other countries, many have stayed in Ukraine, finding refuge in places further away from the front line. Our reporter Rik Glauert visited one such facility in the western city of Lviv.
This facility in Lviv is being purposely built to provide a home for Ukrainians fleeing Russia's invasion. As war rages in the east, cities like this one in the relative security of the western part are swelling with displaced people. Lviv, a city with a population of 800,000 before the war, is now home to more than 1.2 million. Women, children and older people arrive here daily, fleeing war and finding stay in temporary accommodation, like this recently opened modular centre funded by the Polish government. Built to house 1,400 people, more than 700 have already moved in. There are more than 100 shelters in Lviv region alone. Since Russia invaded nearly 1 year ago, millions of Ukrainians have been forced to flee their home. It's the largest humanitarian crisis to hit Europe in decades. Centres like this one provide safety and comfort to fleeing Ukrainians without having to leave their home country. But as the war looks set to enter its second year, returning home is still out of reach. Rik Glauert in Lviv, Ukraine for TaiwanPlus.
For more on the situation in Lviv, Rick spoke to Ed Moon here in the studio in Taipei.
So Rick, you're over in Ukraine at the moment, you're in Lviv, and today you've been visiting a camp for displaced individuals. Can you tell us what the atmosphere is like over there in the camp and in Lviv more generally?
We've spent almost a day now here in Ukraine, and the mood in the city centre and walking around is very much like any city centre. You wouldn't necessarily know that the country is at war. Of course, lots of people are slightly nervous about the year, marking 1 year of the invasion this week. They think that might see an uptick in missile strikes. These are like a weekly occurrence here in Lviv. There's shelters in most buildings or places around, and when you hear the sirens, it's sort of up to each person how they react. Most people will go into a shelter, but I think a lot of people have also sort of got used to the fact that this is a part of life.
There have been rumors coming out in the last hour that President Joe Biden is due to visit Kyiv. There's images online of roads shut down, air traffic reports of US military planes in the air. Can you tell us what you've heard on the ground and what it would mean for Ukraine if Biden was to visit?
So we've been following closely the news of Biden arriving in Ukraine, in Kyiv. The first signs we had was that there was a lot of security presence and roadblocks in Kyiv. There has been a lot of convoys of SUVs going through the capital. We've seen photos of that on Telegram and on social media. We've also seen evidence of a US Air Force plane hovering over the Polish-Ukraine border. We're yet to have official confirmation that Biden is in Kyiv, but there's a lot of signs that that is what's happening. I've spoken to a couple of people here about how they feel about such a visit. Obviously, people here are aware that the US is a major ally for Ukraine. It's been a big backer in this war, from aid to weapons to diplomatic pressure, sanctions on Russia. So obviously, it's a welcome visit, another sure sign of that rock-solid support from the US towards Ukraine. But people here obviously think that this will also maybe provoke a reaction from Russia. That could mean more missile attacks on infrastructure around the country, and it could mean more offensives in the east.
That was our reporter Rik Glauert in Ukraine speaking to Ed Moon. Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus over the next couple of weeks for more exclusive stories as Russia's invasion of Ukraine enters its second year. Back in Taiwan, the country has largely lifted its indoor mask mandate. But on day one of the new policy, many people are choosing to keep their masks on. John Van Trieste has this report.
It's the beginning of the end for Taiwan's indoor mask mandate. Now, the only places you need a mask are on public transport, in medical settings, and in schools and kindergartens. But in this Taipei shopping center, the masks are still on.
因为我觉得是可以让保护我们自己了，因为毕竟是在公共场所嘛，那我们可以保护自己，也可以保护家人。
保护自己啊，对不对？这样子不会传染别人啊。对不对？呀，而且也戴习惯了。
なんか旅行に来る前にインターネットで台湾ではマスク必須っていうことを知ってマスク持ってきました。知らなかったです。
Psychologists say that after 3 years of constant mask wearing, some people are reluctant to take off their face coverings, not just for health reasons, but because they're insecure about how they look. This is especially common among young people who've come of age wearing masks.
每天呢都会一直看着自己的面容，或者是看着自己的身体，一直嫌说自己身体不好。那甚至即使没有不好，他也会觉得说已经很不好，甚至要反复的跟别人确认说，我这里有没有一块斑啊？你跟他讲没斑，他也不相信。
Even outdoors, where people have been free to take off their masks since December, masks are still pretty much everywhere. People in Taiwan would sometimes wear masks when feeling unwell before the pandemic. But 3 years on, it seems masks have become almost a rule. Damon Lin and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's T1 Basketball League is gearing up to hold the country's first AllStar Game in 20 years. The series will kick off in Taipei on February 28th. Its slogan is Welcome to the T1 Universe. A total of 26 players will take part in the games, which will pit Team Infinity against Team Beyond. Players in the league will include former NBA champion Dwight Howard, who will be playing for Team Infinity.
This is the first ever, for the past 20 years, that Taiwan has a professional basketball league, and we have our first All-Star Game. And it takes the league and the 16th efforts, to make this happen. Especially, we decided to have All-Star Game maybe just 2 months ago, and we built everything together. Put everybody's efforts together. So we're so grateful, and we're so lucky to have All-Star Game at the end of February.
But it's not all good news for Dwight. Howard was involved in an incident over the weekend when a fight broke out at a game in Hualien on Sunday. 12 players were ejected in the aftermath of the brawl, including the former NBA star. Bing Wang reports.
A bench-clearing dust-up at a basketball game in northern Taiwan's Hualien City. It was the biggest fight in the history of the 2-year-old T1 League. Just 50 seconds before the end of the game, Taoyuan Leopards guard Chen Xiaorong elbowed Taiwan Beer Hero Bears captain Zhang Yuan square in the face. Believing it was a dirty play, Zhang threw a punch at Chen. The fight escalated when Hero Bears assistant coach Lin Jianhe ran over to Chen, striking him. Benches then cleared with players from both teams attempting to restore peace. Even former NBA All-Star Dwight Howard, who plays for the Leopards, got involved. He took on the role of peacemaker between his fellow players to keep things from escalating.
But as far as controlling what happens on the court, I think there has to be a better job because one play can lead to another play, which can lead up to what happened last night, and we don't want that.
场上球员17号，场上球员17号，因为也涉及动手，涉及动手，必须被夺运出场。
In the end, 12 players and staff from both teams were ejected from the game, 5 from the Hero Bears and 7 from the Leopards. Howard was also thrown out for entering the court. Players cannot leave the bench if they're not in the game. Both teams' general managers have apologized to the fans and have promised to punish the players involved in the fight. Howard Zhang and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, a new research project on Taiwan's whale population kicks off on World Whale Day. Stay tuned.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus. For more great stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. In regional news, North Korea has carried out several missile tests over the past few days. The weapons tests come as the United States holds joint air exercises with South Korea and Japan, and as North Korea continues to push back on the U.S. presence in the region. Jaime Ocon reports.
North Korea is ramping up its ballistic missile program. Early on Monday, the country test-fired 2 short-range missiles, which splashed down off the east coast of the Korean peninsula. Just a few hours later, the United States and Japan conducted joint air drills using advanced F-15 fighter jets. The missile tests and the drills are just the latest in a series of actions raising tensions in the Korean peninsula. Just a day before, North Korea tested this weapon, the Hwasong-15. It's one of the country's most advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. State media says the test was proof of the military's nuclear capabilities.
거리적으로 진행된 대륙간 탄도미사일 발사 훈련은 적대 세력들에 대한 치명적인 핵반격 능력을 불가항력적으로 구축하기 위한 우리 공화국 전략 핵무력의 끊임없는 노력의 실증인 동시에 우리의 강력한 물리적 해곡조력에 대한 철저한 신뢰성의 담보로 의심할 바 없는 뚜렷한 증시로 됩니다.
2022 was a record year for North Korea's missile program. The country test-fired more than 90 ballistic and cruise missiles and made major breakthroughs in its weapons development. And in a military parade earlier this month, North Korea showcased a solid fuel ICBM, which could potentially hit the continental United States. Sunday's missile splashed down into nearby Japan's exclusive economic zone. That prompted the US and South Korea to conduct joint air drills with both bombers and fighter jets.
And so the result of these actions by North Korea is simply to even further solidify the work that we do together the alliance that we share and our commitment to the defense of our partners and allies.
Since Kim Jong-un took power in 2011, the authoritarian leader has made it a priority for North Korea to build up its offensive missile capabilities. Defense officials in the region are concerned about a possible nuclear weapons test, not seen since 2017. But experts say that the reason for the increased frequency in weapons tests has less to do with political messaging, but more with North Korea trying to perfect its strike capabilities.
Yes, there is also a level of domestic messaging to domestic audiences for propaganda purposes, but there's also a technical aspect of it, which is the only way the relevant agencies and authorities in Pyongyang can assess whether its capabilities work as intended is by testing.
The United States says it plans to conduct large-scale nuclear exercises with South Korea near the end of February. But with North Korea showing no signs of slowing down its weapons program, allies in the region are hoping the drills can deter Pyongyang from increasing its aggressive actions. Kamashu and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
And back at home, over a dozen Taiwanese cement producers have been fined for colluding on prices. The Fair Trade Commission says 18 companies were engaged in price fixing in the northern city of Hualien. This includes the formerly state-owned firm Taiwan Cement. The companies have been fined a combined total of around $7 million for violating fair trade laws. Some of the firms say they were surprised by the ruling and that they intend to appeal the decision. A new research project in eastern Taiwan seeks to collect information on sperm whales in the Pacific Ocean. Jeremy Olivier has this story.
Taiwanese whale lovers have a reason to rejoice. A whale-watching tour company in Hualien has launched a project to collect data on the Pacific Ocean's whale population. The group are hitting the seas to search for and collect information on the whereabouts of sperm whales off Taiwan's east coast. Other information like images and sounds will be sent on for further research. On the project's first outing, researchers were treated to a mesmerizing sight, around 60 to 70 false killer whales jumping and swimming alongside their boat.
大家都觉得非常非常的惊艳，尤其是出现了小宝宝，像是刚出生的那个样子。那个鲸豚其实身上都还有皱褶哦，非常非常的可爱。那在世界鲸鱼日里面能够拍到这样子的画面，我们都非常的感动。
The three-year initiative was started on World Whale Day, which fell on February 19th this year. Started in 1980 by the Pacific Whale Foundation, World Whale Day aimed to raise awareness of the threat of extinction faced by humpback whales. Since then, the date has come to include other whale species, many of which are endangered or threatened. For maritime novelists and Hualien local Liao Hongji, initiatives like this are important in allowing humans to better understand and help preserve ocean life.
刻意或者不刻意的，我们已经伤害了海洋的种种。我觉得我们人类应该是尽量减少或者避免对海洋的生态跟环境形成压力。 特别是废弃物这个部分。
The company plans to conduct 10 survey missions each season until 2025. While most will only include researchers, some of the outings will also be open to the general public, a perfect opportunity for anyone who is interested in learning more about these magnificent sea creatures. Damon Lin and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
Two teams from Taiwan won gold at an international youth baking competition over the weekend in Taipei. It's the first time the event has been held in a country outside of Europe in its 52-year history. Joyce Zheng has more.
Going to
Taiwan.
Cheers erupting for Team Taiwan. They've just won first place at the UIBC International Championship for Young Bakers. The event in Taipei saw Jian Si-yun and Zheng Jie-ying claim the competition's coveted artisan bakery category, besting teams from Sweden and Brazil. The pair did this by cooking up 140 baked goods in only 6 hours.
就是水泡破了又再破，破了再破这样。痛要忍着继续做，完整做好才是重点。
The competition invites the cream of the crop of under 25s from around the world. This year, the prestigious event left Europe for the first time since its founding in 1971. The competition saw Jian and Zheng receive notable praise for their showpiece, Scenic Ballet, a piece that pays tribute to one of Taiwan's indigenous groups. And other members of Team Taiwan were also on a roll. 20-year-old Ling Yi went on to take first place in the Western pastries category. She beat competitors from Germany, Brazil, and Malaysia. Taiwanese culture was front and center in Lin's confectionery creations. Her chocolates and fancy cakes depict dragon and lion dances, raised lanterns, and an auspicious goldfish. Ling also used local ingredients, including tea and fruits, to make sure her pastries tasted as good as they looked.
还是有一些小失误，然后当然就是赶快在下一次的流程中，比赛开始前把它调整好。很意外自己可以拿到这么好的成绩。
The emotional wins indicate that Taiwanese talent is on the rise in the global confectionery scene. And Team Taiwan's sweet victories on their home turf show that sometimes people can in fact have their cake and eat it too. Eason Pan and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
One of artist Jeff Koons' iconic balloon dog sculptures has been destroyed at an arts festival in Miami. The porcelain sculpture broke into tiny shards last week when a visitor accidentally knocked it over. The piece was part of the American artist's iconic balloon animals collection. It was valued at $42,000 US. The balloon dog sculpture was part of a limited edition, the number of which has now dropped to 798. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Remember to download the Taiwan Plus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these shots I took of cherry blossoms in bloom in the heart of Taipei. I'm Rik Glauert. Take care and see you next time.